Hi, I'm Bill Treiber with Artistic Finishes. Yet another educational video. Today is going to focus on the American Disabilities Act, which since 1992 has really stepped up its enforcement, particularly in the area that we're going to talk about today, Section 4.5, which is ground and floor surfaces. You know, here at Artistic we make a lot of transitional products. We want to look at those a little closer to know what is ADA compliant and what might not be ADA compliant. First, let's talk about vents. I have here a number of different vents, and as the codes apply to primarily height changes in the floor, when you look at our surface vent, some would refer to it as a drop-in vent. The rule that comes in is a 4.5.2 height change requirement of no greater than a 1:2 ratio. We have a 1/2 inch height jump on this profile. Even though the frame is 1.25 inches, the actual ramp or slope portion or incline is less than 1 inch. Therefore, it is, and just barely, it could be slightly modified to be ADA compliant, but as it is shown here today, it is not ADA compliant. Our flush vents, obviously with no height changes, designed to be put into the floor for the floor thickness, would be, in terms of height change, obviously ADA compliant. The other rule that we look at regarding vents is the louver or gap space allowable. ADA allows up to a 1/2 inch gap or louver space between for airflow on the vents. So all of our surface vents and flush vents are compliant based on gap space allowable. However, if you look at this one here, which is an egg crate design, some would refer to it as a cold air return vent. This has almost 1 inch space. Even though they're square, it still exceeds that 1/2 inch gap space, therefore would not be allowed in terms of ADA compliant, and it becomes non-ADA compliant. So that's a little bit about our vents, and for the most part we are compliant. Be careful with your drop-ins or surface vents, however. Next would be to discuss reducers. Now here at Artistic we make a number of styles and designs, and if you look at the top section here in terms of reducers, you will see that they are the flush reducers, okay? And with regards to our flush reducers, that 1:2 ratio, height rise to run, our flush reducers are all ADA compliant as shown here. Even our 3/4 inch largest one in a flush manner would be ADA compliant, because the height rise of 3/4 of an inch on a a little over 2.5 inch wide slope covers that gap. Okay? When you get into overlap reducers, however, for the most part these are non-compliant. Why? Because we have a very quick rise on most of these, and because of the overlap section they have a greater rise with basically the same amount of run, and that 1:2 ratio we fall short on. So be careful when you get into the overlapping reducers. For the most part, our 029, our 025, 035, and 895 reducers overlapping are non-compliant. Two of our new EnduraCore profiles, which include overlap profiles, again, nice wide section of it, but the height rise, it comes up very quickly. But in our non-compliant overlapping reducers in the EnduraCore product line, the 290 and the 293 become non-compliant. In regards to our stair nosings, all of our stair nosings, even the overlapping stair nosings, are ADA compliant. The only small height rise that you see at the lip portion where the floor would come into these, being less than 1/4 inch, you can have a direct vertical rise. So anything less than 1/4 inch becomes a non-issue, okay? So there is really no concern for either flush or overlapping stair nosing products. Okay, the next section or product segment would be our square nosing. Square nosings are all compliant if a product is installed next to them that brings the height of the vertical rise within 1/4 inch. Let me restate that. They are only compliant, square nosings, if they have a surface like carpet or another floor that is butted up next to it that comes to within the top 1/4 inch of this section. Why? Because that is the maximum amount allowed for a vertical rise, bump up, 1/4 inch. However, if you are using square nosings in each of these cases where you have a floor down at the base of the drop down of a square nosing, they would all be non-ADA compliant. And this also carries over directly to thresholds. We have a number of thresholds that we make, but these are the most common, the 008 and the 011. Here again, if you are using a threshold next to a product, flooring product that bumps up next to the height portion, the vertical rise portion of that threshold, then you're going to be compliant ADA. If not, and you're dropping down to the base of the main section of the threshold, you're going to be non-compliant. Even the little bit of an angle that's involved there does not create a large enough run on the slope to create that 1-to-2 ratio. So, for example, a 1/2 inch rise requires a 1 inch slope, okay? Lastly, when we look at these standards, they also have yet to determine a format with which we can talk about slip resistance, the coefficient of friction, but they are working with new measurement devices, but ADA is not compliant to that. Most of the finishes that you see on floors today automatically are concerned about slip resistance. All of our finishes, I would say, would fall well within the new standards that are coming about for slip resistancy. But that certainly is an area that is going to come into play more and more into the future. I think we've covered our products. I want to encourage you to be aware of where these compliances may be affecting you. Any of your light industrial projects, even remodels today, hotels, hospitals, multi-housing. You get into homes today, most construction is trying to conform to ADA compliancy because where we're going is going to affect that into the future. And certainly, Artistic Finishes will be there to guide you if you do have any additional questions. Hey, I want to thank you for being with us today. It's been a great short visit. We'll get into this a little bit more with future articles and information, but thanks. We hope to see you again in the near future.